Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Epstein investigation, arrest. Virginia Giuffre's brother and sister-in-law, central in long-running abuse allegations against the former prince. Join us. Andrew Yang, he ran for president in 2020. You might remember that. And at the time, he warned that AI would erase millions of white-collar jobs. He joins us with specific and unnerving new predictions. Overtime gold for Team USA against Canada, a gritty comeback classic. And Kelly O'Grady brings us the Olympic elation. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. A former prince spent 11 hours in a British jail today under investigation for possible wrongdoing as a trade official. This is not, at least not yet, about sex trafficking or sexual abuse related to Jeffrey Epstein, but it arises out of suspicions linked to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's long-running relationship with Epstein. The King of England endorsed the arrest. When the reputational and now potentially criminal blast radius of the Epstein investigation reaches the monarchy, it is a global news event. For years, Virginia Giuffre said Epstein trafficked her to the former Prince Andrew in 2001 when she was a teen. Giuffre also alleged the former prince sexually assaulted her. Andrew denied this for years, but reached a settlement in 2022 with Giuffre in New York, transferring an unknown sum of money without admitting guilt. Giuffre took her own life last year. Her brother and sister-in-law, passionate advocates in Virginia's memory, will join us in just a moment. First, we turn to MTS Tayeb for the latest on Andrew's arrest. MTS, you're up late. It's been a very long day. Catch us up on the entire panoply of events dealing with the former prince, the reaction there, and the monarchy itself.
Major, what an extraordinary day. I have to be honest with you, when I saw that alert that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the man formerly known as Prince Andrew, had been taken into police custody, while I thought something like this could happen, to see that it actually did was shocking. Police, British police, crossing a threshold once thought unbelievable, taking a member of the royal family into police custody to be questioned. Now, he has since been released. We've seen that image of Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew, released from police custody. That doesn't mean he's a free man. He can be arrested again at any time, and that investigation continues. One of the places that he used to call home, a place called the Royal Lodge, is still being searched by police. They're looking for things like laptops, cell phones, documents, anything that could underscore this investigation into the allegations of misconduct in public office. That is what they are investigating Andrew for, a charge so serious that if he's convicted, and if he's charged and indeed convicted, he could face life in prison. Major.
And MTS, explain to our audience just how big a deal it is for the King of England to not only endorse this, but to say, as he did, he wants all of this to play out and is fully supportive of wherever this investigation might eventually lead.
Well, Major, here in the UK, the royal family is known as the firm, which tells you that it's sort of seen almost as a business that the royal family is a part of. And that has to come first, not the individual players. And Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is frankly not as important as the institution itself. You're looking at Buckingham Palace behind me. This is a 1,000-year history, which of course has seen a lot of up and downs over the years, but King Charles making it very clear that the law must run its course, if that involves his brother being charged and indeed convicted, well, that is what the law will do. It is still striking and shocking. Never in the modern history of the British royal family have we seen anything like this. You used the word blast radius in your introduction. That's really what it feels like here in the UK. Right now, the king trying to keep calm and carry on. In fact, going to a London Fashion Week event as normal, quote unquote, still being shouted questions about his brother and his conduct. This is something that's going to be rocking this family for quite some time. Major.
And it may have implications for British politics as well. MTS Tayeb, thank you very much. Virginia Giuffre's brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, Amanda, join us now. I'm deeply appreciative for your time. I would just like to both ask you this. When you saw the news about the former Prince Andrew this morning, how did that land with you emotionally?
I would say initially, I mean, we had this just like boost of adrenaline that it almost felt surreal. It didn't feel like this moment would come at any point. And we got a call at 3 a.m. from Virginia's longtime friend and publicist, Deanie von Muffling. And, you know, it hit me all at once there. And I went to Amanda and she's like, go back to sleep. And I go to Amanda and I'm like, Andrew's been arrested. And she just like flung out. And then, you know, following that boost of emotion or that boost of joy, really vindication for Virginia. I mean, I could tell you it's been kind of an up and down day. We've had a lot of a mix of emotions. I found myself crying in a restaurant earlier for really no other reason than just that we miss her. We wish she was here to see this. And this is a day for her survivor sisters. This is a day that they were wanting for a long time. And I think it gives a little bit of vindication to her and to her survivor sisters.
Amanda, I want to hear your voice on that as well.
Yeah, shock. You know, it's 3 a.m. and I was like, what? You know, I asked again, just to be clear, like what I was hearing Sky say. And, you know, in that moment, when something like this happens, we would have been calling Virginia and screaming and rejoicing with her. And so the flood of that like mixed emotion, you know, we've had some really rough moments today, but we also want to continue on the path of victory. We want to take this as a win and keep pushing forward.
Either one of you can take this, but for my audience's benefit, I know it had to have felt when Virginia was alive that she was up against almost an impossible foe in the British monarchy, and that then Prince Andrew was untouchable, and yet she continued to make the allegations, and bravely so. Talk to us about what that process was like as you knew it through her eyes and you felt it being so close to her.
It was difficult. I mean, she had to come forward at times where everybody was basically trying to call her a naysayer, that she wasn't telling the truth. And I think now that you're seeing the files come out, you can see that's quite the opposite. I mean, we're incredibly proud of her. And there's one moment that really resonates in my mind. And I remember the moment where she said, he knows what he did. I know what he did. And there's only one of us telling the truth. And I know that's me. And that keeps resonating in my head today. And it has for the past weeks, because we're seeing her as a truth teller now. And I'm so happy the world is seeing that as well. But it just means we have more work to do.
Yeah.
And Amanda, when you see the investigation is about possible documents exchanged while he was a trade official, what does that tell you about where things are and where they might eventually land?
Yeah, absolutely. I also just want to add on that because like Virginia had a knack for when someone told her she couldn't do something, she would say, watch me. And so like that's her character coming to fruition today. And what I would say about like the specifics of the case coming forward, where we're just looking at maybe, you know, charges on sharing information. I do want to reiterate that is punishable by life in the UK. So that is a very extreme punishment. And we welcome that. But we also want to say that this is the beginning of the web. This is the thread that we need to continue to pull to uncover the further allegations. We hope the UK is persistent in that. And we know that if they really follow this trail, they will get there as well. And we're expecting the same acts to happen here in the United States. And it's been very shameful to not see that come from our own government.
Sky, I'd like your thoughts comparing and contrasting so far the reaction in the United Kingdom as compared to the reaction in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I said it before. I commend the king. I truly do. It's got to be incredibly difficult to be in the position he's in right now. And the fact that he's created an open space for the investigation to acknowledge survivors, but also just acknowledge that other crimes may have been committed. If you were capable of committing this crime, what other crimes could you have committed? And these files are very telling. But then on the opposite side, you have our own administration here basically telling the American public that, we're going to move on from this. And the reality is that the American public is screaming back at them, along with survivors and our survivor sisters, saying, well, you might be ready to move on, but we're not. And so it's just, the contrast is so stark. And we're at a crossroad here. I mean, this could be a huge stain, not just, we challenged the royal family before, and this could be a stain there, but this is a stain on American history. Are we really we're really gonna protect predators when in plain eyes, you're telling us what we see with our eyes and we hear with our ears, that's not real? That's gaslighting, right? At its very fullest. And so if you read the files, and I'm sure you have, there's so many moments where it's disgusting. You can tell clearly that the person behind that redacted name is clearly implicated. That person needs to be investigated by our DOJ and by the President of the United States and its administration.
Amanda, how much confidence do you have that will happen, that those investigations will be launched, and that accountability, criminal or civil, will be realized?
To say particularly in this specific Department of Justice and Pam Bondi, I have zero confidence in her. The fact that we were sitting 3 feet away and she couldn't even turn around to acknowledge us. But what I will say is this, is now that we have the power, we have seen what they are willing to do and not do. And so this is actually our choice. We need to look at our representatives. We need to look at Congress to take whatever actions necessary to keep pushing this forward. It must be uncovered. We must see further indictments. And I would say this, anyone in our administration, especially in the Department of Justice, if you are not willing to expose predators and do right by the survivors in this case, then you should resign.
Sky, this show is devoted to politics, policy, and pop culture, but I've said over and over about this story, we are not covering this story because it is political. We are covering this story because people were victimized. However, if there was not a political component, there would not be an Epstein Transparency Act on the books as federal law. So there is part of this that flows through the political dialogue in America. From that vantage point, what do you believe today's news in the United Kingdom might mean here?
Well, it's never been a political issue for any survivor. We never said that previous administrations got this right. Quite frankly, every administration prior to this, they're in the same boat where they likely didn't do right by survivors. But the point is that it's at the doorstep of this administration. So my hope is that this is just a cause and effect moment, that the domino has finally fallen, that the next series of House of Cards are about to show their face. Like, we have to take action after this. And the way that the UK responds, the way that they treat this investigation is going to set the tone for the rest of all of the other investigations that are going to take place. And I really sincerely hope, I do, and I'm pleading with our government, look at your daughters, look at your sisters, look at your mothers. This is a human issue. This has nothing to do with politics. We have to work politics through it because our laws are broken. They're broken for survivors. They're broken for sexual abuse. So we have a lot of change politically to do there. But when you boil it down, it's at such a fundamental and human level. Pick up your baby girls tonight. Look them in the face. Tell them you did nothing. Or pick them up and tell them, mommy and daddy are fighting. We're going to do this for you. This next generation deserves better.
Amanda, let me give you the last word.
I will say, 2 things. While this may be political, it is not partisan. And I want to remind every single representative, Republican, Democrat, Independent, and all the way in between, every single citizen out there, this is something that we can get by, and we're looking for you to do so. And I also want to tell every single survivor out there that this day is for you, and that ordinary people like Virginia can do extraordinary things no matter the trauma and pain that you've lived through. And we're here for you, we see you, and we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to pull you over that finish line.
Sky Roberts, wife Amanda, thank you very, very much for your time. Still to come on The Takeout, we're going to take you to Georgia, where President Trump is making his pitch to voters in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district as they head to the polls for early voting. Also, 2020 presidential candidate Andrew Yang's out with a new book and a stark warning. He joins us to discuss the future of AI and how many jobs it could replace and when. Plus, the U.S. and Canadian women's hockey teams squared off for the gold medal game. I kind of gave away the result. We're going to check in on all the excitement around that later on the show. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to the Takeout. I believe we have some live pictures. President Trump speaking now in Rome, Georgia, as early voting begins in the congressional race there to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene. Skylar Henry is at the rally and joins us now. Skylar, what's going on?
Hey, Major. Hey, Major. Good to be with you as always. Actually, President Trump right now speaking about the Fulton County raid that happened a couple of weeks ago when agents raided the facility there, the election center. Take a listen to him really quickly.
You know why they don't want? Because they cheated, that's why.
The president obviously speaking to those 2020 remarks and claims that he's made time and time again that the election was rigged and stolen, something that has been disproven by not only those who work at the election facility in Fulton County, but also Republicans, including the Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and the Republican Governor, Brian Kemp. The president, though, largely sticking to the message of the day, and that is the economy, speaking about small business, affordability, and also tariffs as well. Of course, speaking in reference to the high-profile case that is in the Supreme Court right now that could very well decide and impact what happens to consumers' wallets, and the High Court determines whether or not the president overstepped or what he did was in line with what his powers are. Take a listen to this soundbite.
And to think I have to be in the United States Supreme Court for many, many months waiting for a decision on tariffs. Without tariffs, this country would be in such trouble right now.
And so the president, again, largely sticking to conversations surrounding the economy, but also, Major, there are people here in the crowd who he has endorsed, including who he wants to take over for now former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. His name is Clay Fuller, who is a district attorney here, who is referring to himself as a MAGA warrior and says that he wants to move forward with the president's America First agenda. Will be interesting to see whether the president's endorsement sticks, as we are currently in a special election to fill former Congresswoman Greene's seat. This is a deep race here. About 18 people are running for the race, and this is now a jungle primary in the special election, which also includes Democrats and independents as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as early voting ends and this special election happens in March.
Skylar Henry, covering the president in Rome, Georgia. Thank you very much. President Trump hosted the first meeting of the Board of Peace today here in Washington to discuss the future of Gaza, roughly 2.5 years after the war between Hamas and Israel began. More than 24 countries have signed on to become members of the Board of Peace, but representatives from more than 40 other nations that haven't quite yet signed up attended as observers, informally so. The president said the United States would put $10 billion behind this effort, the effort to rebuild Gaza, but didn't say where the money would come from or what it would be spent for. The president also provided a potential timeline. We underscore the word potential timeline for when the United States might launch a military strike against Iran.
So now we may have to take it a step further, or we may not. Maybe we're going to make a deal. Well, you're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days.
Earlier, I spoke with Matt Kroenig of the Atlantic Council about what's realistic for plans to rebuild Gaza as well as the military buildup in the Middle East. Here's our conversation. We will get to the Board of Peace in a moment, but a much more pressing and much less peaceful issue is Iran. Matt, do you think U.S. attacks on Iran at this stage are nearly inevitable?
I think they are nearly inevitable, Major. The president would like a deal. I think it would be a big political win for him if he could say he got a nuclear deal that was better than the Obama deal. But the Iranian leadership is stubborn. They're digging in their heels and not willing to agree to that. And so I think the diplomatic track is not going anywhere, and the president will then turn to the military option, which could be coming any day.
Is that a military option designed to further deteriorate whatever is left of Iran's nuclear capabilities or to change the regime?
Well, that's a big question. And, just a reminder about how we got here. In December, we had these historic uprising within Iran against the Iranian government. President Trump drew a red line and said if the Iranian government kills its own people, that there will be a price to pay. He told the Iranian people that help is on the way. He couldn't take action at the time, though, because U.S. military forces were in the Western Hemisphere. He's now had time to reposition forces to the region. He saw an opportunity for diplomacy. That opportunity is passed. And so now I think it's what is the purpose of the military operation? I think there are some advisors arguing that this is the moment for regime change. Others probably saying, no, let's just do limited strikes, make sure the Iranian regime pays a price, and then get out. So it'll be up to the president to decide.
I promise we'll get to the border peace, but one last question on this. How much does the Iraq 2003 and aftermath hang over this decision that confronts President Trump?
I think it does hang over him, and he wants to avoid repeating the mistakes of Iraq. And so on one hand, he said that he wants a decisive option that achieves real results. On the other hand, there is the fear that if you take out the regime, what comes to replace it, and do you have chaos? And so I think those are the kinds of issues he's going to be thinking about over the coming days as he weighs his military options.
On the border peace, what strikes you as interesting about who's in and who is not yet in?
Yes. Well, and again, maybe just a reminder of how we got here. Israel and Palestine have been fighting for decades, renewed conflict after the October 7th attack. And we got this peace deal last year, Trump's 20-point plan that includes creating a board of peace. And it's important that there are many majority Muslim countries that are a part of this because it's going to play a role in rebuilding and securing Palestine. And so with Hamas there needing to be disarmed, having Muslim peacekeepers go in, I think will be helpful. Many of America's traditional allies, though, like Britain and France, have not yet signed on. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One, they're worried about Trump's comments that suggest that this could become a kind of parallel to the United Nations. And also, Trump has extended some invitations to unsavory characters like Putin. And so it's not the usual mix of American like-minded allies that are a part of this board.
And there are some who fear this is just a real estate deal run amok.
Well, I don't know. I think that Trump does really value his role as a peacemaker. He talks about the peace that prevailed during his first term. He has been very active in the second term, trying to negotiate peace in several ongoing conflicts. And so I think that is the main purpose of this, is to bring peace to this region. But Trump is a real estate person. He's seen the coastline in Gaza. And I think he can't help but imagine if you had security, if you had economic development, how this could be good for the Palestinian people, but also good for real estate.
What do you think is the probability that Hamas actually disarms? Because if it doesn't, it will shoot just about anyone who challenges its authority. And I'm not sure it cares very much about ethnicity, ideology, or religious observance.
Well, this is going to be the hardest part, getting Hamas, which has governed Gaza for many years, to voluntarily give up their weapons. It was always going to be the hardest part of this deal. That's the big stumbling block now. And so, are the peacekeepers that are going to go in, are they peacekeepers? Are they peacemakers? Are they going to be expected to forcibly disarm Hamas? That'll be challenging. I do think, though, that having Muslim forces go in from around the region would be even better, would be better than having, say, Americans or Europeans go in. It would reek of kind of colonialism. And I think also much easier for Hamas to kill Americans than co-religionists.
Before I let you go, Matt, The Guardian published a piece today talking about plans not authenticated yet by the Trump administration for a 5,000-person military base inside Gaza, sprawling 350 acres. Is that the kind of thing that you would need to have permanent resources and facilities for a peacekeeping force?
Well, I haven't seen that yet, but one of the lessons the United States learned in Iraq and Afghanistan is that counterinsurgency is personnel heavy. You do need a lot of forces if you're going to maintain order. And so that may be one of the other lessons the United States and its allies have learned from Iraq and Afghanistan. You can't do peace building on the cheap. You do need a heavy security presence to prevent the reoccurrence of conflict.
Matt Kroenig, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
During the 2020 presidential campaign, Andrew Yang, running as a Democrat, warned of the dangers of artificial intelligence. He did so long before that was on Washington's radar screen. His other signature topic, universal basic income. Next, Andrew Yang, who's an independent now, joins me to discuss his new book and his views on the state of U.S. politics. You're watching and enjoying The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. You might recall Andrew Yang's 2020 presidential campaign. It had a fair amount of social media sizzle. And during it, he talked about something called UBI, Universal Basic Income, giving everyone $1,000 per month. Yang lost, which, as he writes in his new book, has caused lots of people to yell at him more than once. Hey, Yang, where's my $1,000? Well, here's some of my conversation with him about that and the future of artificial intelligence. Andrew Yang, great to have you here. We love to have fun here, so I'm just going to read the title of the book, and I hope you brought it with you. Hey, Yang, where's my $1,000?
Yes, I'm carrying it right now.
Good.
I have a stack of bills.
My assistant will be
request.
waiting outside to take it from you.
Yes, I do get asked this on the streets of New York and other places. The other question I have gotten is, hey, am I racist, or are you Andrew Yang, which is the alternate title of the book.
What is the origin of the $1,000?
Well, the $1,000 was my version of universal basic income that I campaigned on in 2020. I said that AI was going to come and displace millions of Americans, and we should start distributing the gains quickly. Crazy, I know. I mean, now people come to me every day and say, wow, you were ahead of the curve.
Right. And universal basic income is something you and I've talked about before. You can watch the OG version of The Takeout to see our session on that. It's an idea rooted in the Nixon administration in the 60s. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, when he worked for the Nixon administration, wrote an entire book about it.
Yeah, we could alleviate poverty at scale in this country. We've already done it or come close to doing it. We cut child poverty in half in 2021 as one example. And GDP now is around $84,000 a head. It's going to go past $100,000 per person with AI, which is going to have a lot of negative effects, which we'll probably talk about. But it's certainly going to increase top-line growth. So at some point, you have to look up and say, wow, we could actually do a lot more for people and families.
And explain the basic construct of a universal basic income.
So again, not Andrew Yang's idea. Martin Luther King, Thomas Paine, a lot of other people were for versions of it. But you just get a certain amount of money every month, no questions asked, to meet your basic
cash.
needs. Yeah, I mean, there are different ways to structure it, but universal basic income generally means cash in your hands.
And you don't go through the process in the modern welfare state of qualification forms, et cetera, et cetera.
It's the U in universal, Major. Everyone gets it. No questions, no stigma. You're a citizen.
And no imaginary line where you are or aren't qualified for assistance.
Yeah, you're a citizen and stakeholder of the richest, most advanced society in the history of the world, which is the United States. And $1,000 a month is eminently doable.
And there have been areas where this has been tested in our country.
Yeah, there are various communities that have had versions of it, and what you saw was an increase in conscientiousness and agreeableness among children, which I dare say would be very good as a parent. People put the money toward educational materials and fuel and food and transportation, getting to and from their job. So a lot of the scary stories about what people do with money aren't borne out by studies or reality.
They do practical things with the money.
They do what most of the people watching this
and it makes their lives better and a little bit happier.
Might do. What's funny, Major, is you talk to someone, be like, look, I would use the money for very wholesome things, but like that guy over there is gonna scrub with it. I mean, right. But the studies show that most people would do what you and I would do.
So the book talks a little bit about your presidential campaign. Was that something you are glad you did, or you regret that you did?
Oh gosh, I'm so grateful. Now I look. No, I look back so positively on meeting thousands of Americans around the country, making a case. I ran in order to accelerate the adoption of something that could alleviate poverty at scale, and grateful to everyone who got behind me and the campaign. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime experience, or maybe not once in a lifetime, because who knows?
Who knows?
Do it again.
Stay tuned. You write in the book that when you would give your normal speech it started off when you were beginning this process dry and it didn't really land. And then the more vulnerable you became, the more relatable you became, the more the crowd showed. What's that process like as a human being?
I recommend that everyone run for president because
I do not recommend that everyone run for president, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're going to agree to disagree on that.
But for me, certainly it's a journey where I had facts and figures and a PowerPoint deck. And then people were like, yeah, interesting. Because it turns out people are more interested in supporting a person than they are a deck or an idea. And that was a journey for me. I make the mistake over and over again where I think the next thing is going to be like the last thing. And it turns out that running for office, particularly president, turns into a very deeply personal experience pretty quickly.
Even though one of the things that your supporters gravitated to was a slogan or a hat or a shirt that said math. So they had an expectation that they would get more slide deck with Andrew Yang than, say, somebody else.
Yeah, they'd be disappointed if there weren't some numbers. But MATH was an acronym that stood for Make Americans Think Harder, right. Which did not work, obviously.
Didn't quite catch on.
We haven't, well, I mean, yeah, like we didn't think hard enough, in my opinion. And my campaign was born of the harsh reality that AI was coming down the pike and was going to take a lot of jobs.
Let's drill into that. Where are we now? What do you foresee in the next 1 or 2 years?
It's shocking, Major, because it's changing almost daily. But I think millions of Americans are going to lose their jobs in the next 12 to 18 months.
Millions of Americans who have jobs now will not have them in 18 to 24 months.
Yes, that's right.
What kind of jobs?
Call center jobs, programmer, designer, marketing, analyst, anything with the word analyst or research in it, consultant, lawyers, accountants. Most white-collar jobs are going to shrink because you now have AI that can do knowledge work much, much faster and more powerfully. I talked to the CEO of a publicly traded tech company, and he said to me privately, we're going to fire 15% of our workers, and then we're going to fire 20% probably 2 years later, and then we're going to fire another 20% 2 years after that. So there are going to be decisions like that made at just about every major publicly traded company.
Because the competitive imperative for publicly traded companies only runs in one direction.
Yeah, and if a company, by the way, did not do this, their stock price would plummet over time because everyone's going to have this competitive dynamic. Can I do more with less? Can I do more with fewer people? And so when you cut workers, your stock goes up. And CEOs are under a lot of pressure themselves to deliver. And so there's going to be an unfortunate competitive dynamic where the more ruthless you can be on headcount, the more you get rewarded.
You can catch the rest of my interview with Andrew Yang, lots of different topics discussed on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Next, we take a closer look at the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the ongoing global fallout from the Epstein files. That's coming up next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to Takeout. Thanks for hanging out with us. I want to turn back to our top story, the arrest of that's what we call him now, ex-Prince Andrew. Emotional day for the family of the late Virginia Giuffre. She had said she was trafficked to engage in sex with him, Andrew, when she was underage. Earlier in this program, I spoke to Virginia's brother, Sky Roberts, and his wife, Amanda, who are taking today's arrest, this is their words, as a kind of victory and vindication, but are pretty critical of officials in this country, saying they have not done enough when it comes to either transparency or prosecutorial follow-up on the Epstein files revelations. Listen.
If you read the files, and I'm sure you have, there's so many moments where it's disgusting. I mean, you can tell clearly that the person behind that redacted name is clearly implicated. That person needs to be investigated by our DOJ and by the President of the United States and its administration.
Amanda, how much confidence do you have that will happen, that those investigations will be launched, and that accountability, criminal or civil, will be realized?
To say particularly in this specific Department of Justice and Pam Bondi, I have zero confidence in her. The fact that we were sitting 3 feet away and she couldn't even turn around to acknowledge us. But what I will say is this, is now that we have the power, we have seen what they are willing to do and not do. And so this is actually our choice. We need to look at our representatives. We need to look at Congress to take whatever actions necessary to keep pushing this forward. It must be uncovered. We must see further indictments. And I would say this. Anyone in our administration, especially in the Department of Justice, if you are not willing to expose predators and do right by the survivors in this case, then you should resign.
I want to bring in our political panel now, Republican strategist and former Principal Deputy Press Secretary under President Trump, Harrison Fields, and Democratic influencer and president of the immigration nonprofit Migrantes Unidos, Carlos Eduardo Espina. It's great to have you both here. Harrison, I want to start with you. What do you think this means for the Trump administration? This particular saga, this particular story, and its widening global reach right now?
Yeah, I think many of the Trump administration probably expect some of this because they are the ones that are uncovering the largest scandal, which was covered up the last 4 years. There is a reason why the Epstein files are being discussed today. Because this president, Donald J. Trump, his attorney general, Pam Bondi, who I also worked for when she was Florida attorney general, actually did what they said they were going to do on the campaign trail and released the files. Has the process been perfect? Absolutely not. Does there need to be more transparency? 1,000%. I think that's going to be a commitment of the administration because it was a campaign promise, and we're seeing them roll that out now.
But you would acknowledge, Harrison, would you not, that the administration was not an early advocate of the Epstein transparency legislation when it was a discharge petition in the House and only came around when it was clear that they could not keep that dam locked?
Well, the president and the DOJ made it clear that they were going to release the files. Was it going to take longer than many people wanted? Yes, I'd grant you that. But the reality is they did it. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, it's becoming a political issue. The Democrats were radio silent on the Epstein issue when Joe Biden had a DOJ for 4 years. Where were they? They were absolutely missing in action. So now they have a political weapon, really the only tool in their toolbox, because they can't talk about the border. It's secure. They can't really talk about the economy. It's doing better than it was under President Biden. So they're using this as a political tool, as a distraction from the achievements of the administration. I just hope that both sides can come together, allow the process to work out. The president signed the bill. It's going to be messy. At the end of the day, we want to give justice to the victims, and I believe this DOJ will get there.
Carlos, your thoughts on this? Because as Sky and Amanda said on my program, yes, there were faults in other previous administrations, but right now they do not see things that live up to the letter or the spirit of the law. So take it.
Well, I think we should just all take a step back. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are making this such a political issue of, I'm hoping this gets revealed or this person falls. I think I'm on the mindset of most Americans, which is whoever is implicated should fall. I don't care if they're a Democrat. I don't care if they're a Republican. I'm a good friend of Ro Khanna, and I really appreciate the work he's doing with Thomas Massie. And I think this is an issue that should unite us as a country and say, hey, we can stand together against these rings of things that I can't even really get into detail. I mean, the evidence is there. And if it's a Democrat behind, if it's a Republican, if it's both, if it's neither, that needs to come out, and there needs to be people who need to pay the price for the things that they've done. I think we should all be behind that same message.
And do you detect the same contrast that Sky and Amanda noted, that it seems to be a bigger issue in other countries than it is in ours right now?
Well, I do think that, unfortunately, the Justice Department is not moving at the pace that people wish, that I wish. And I think I've even seen this from a lot of Republicans say, hey, I voted for this administration for transparency, for this, and that. And they're just not getting that at the moment. So I would like, people to start falling. I mean, we can't have all these things come to light and then there's no justice, there's no consequence. I think that's just despicable. And I think, I don't want to assume, hey, it's for this reason or that reason, but it is very questionable. It makes you think.
Harrison, I'd like to talk to you about something that also was on the program. President's in Rome, Georgia. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. She's no longer in Congress. They had a very public breakup. He called her Marjorie Traitor Greene. Part of the source code for that breakup was her allegations that the administration was not taking the Epstein files seriously enough, not living up to the campaign promises that you referred to earlier. How do you evaluate that? What happened to that relationship and how it does or does not shine light on this particular Epstein matter?
Listen, Marjorie Taylor Greene was a fighter on the campaign trail. I went to many campaigns. Ferocious. And we all understood that. But when the president got sworn in on January 20th, she continued to make it all about herself. The president is the president for all Americans, not just Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And her 14th district of Georgia.
And her 14th district of Georgia. He cannot pick up every single call. He cannot be at the whim of one member of Congress. I think she made it a lot more about herself than anything else. What the president is doing here is making sure that, yes, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can release the files, but he really wants the main focus to be on what the American people voted and elected him to do, which was securing the border, making our economy better, pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, historic tax relief for American families. He wants to focus on those big ticket items. He's solving world conflicts all across the globe. He wants to remain focused on things that he truly thinks matter, not the charade, which is the files.
Carlos, 30 seconds. You get to round us out.
Well, I think, we need to put the Epstein stuff behind us. We need to get justice, make sure everything is released.
That's how we put it behind us.
Yeah, that's how we put it. Yeah, we need, we need to
not
release
bury it, but
no, not bury it. We need to expose everything, whoever needs to pay, whether it's Democrat, Republican, and then really comes down to what are we going to do for our country moving forward? I think we need to put away this division, this hatred, and at the same time, understand that we want what's best for our country. I think the solution right now is Democrats. I think Trump has really lost the plot, but at the same time, we can disagree respectfully without,
We love to do that here, disagree respectfully. Carlos, Eduardo Espina, and Harrison Fields, thank you. It's great to have you both here. I appreciate it. Up next, gold medal game in women's hockey. The U.S. wins in an instant classic against Canada. We love Canada, but not when it comes to hockey and the Olympics. Our Kelly O'Grady joins us from Milan. That's next. Welcome back to the Takeout. It took overtime, but the U.S. women's hockey team bringing home the gold after defeating Canada 2-1. Kelly O'Grady, our gold medalist in Milano, with the details. And you also, as I understand it, have new news, very, very, very new news on figure skating. So take it away, Kelly.
Major, I finally get to come on your show after racing through the streets of Milan with some excellent news, a double gold medal. If you can tell how excited I am, let's start with women's figure skating. Alyssa Liu is now the Olympic champion. Remember, she left the sport, quit skating in 2022 after those Beijing Games. She came back just 2 years ago, and tonight she is walking away with a gold medal. She skated with such joy, such passion, and that is her secret weapon in a games where we have talked about the pressure that these athletes are under. She just went out and skated with her heart. Amber Glenn, by the way, had such a redemption skate. She skated lights out, moved up to 5th from 13th. And how about that women's hockey team besting rival Canada? It went to sudden death overtime. My producer and I, we had heart palpitations throughout. Canada was up 1-0 for most of the match. But then they pulled the goalie, the U.S. women, and Hillary Knight became the top scorer in U.S. Olympic hockey history. She sent it into sudden death overtime, and the women walked away with the gold. What a fantastic night for sports and for Team USA.
And Kelly, just so I'm clear, you were at both events.
So we were at the figure skating and we were watching the hockey on our phone, and our team was outside the hockey to get reaction from fans. We were covering all our bases tonight here in Milan.
And I just want to know, we got 35 seconds. Explain how it is you get across the city to get to these live shots, which you do so brilliantly and sometimes breathlessly.
Well, with a fantastic team that is telling me to run faster, and we're all yelling, "This is important," a la the Canadian curler, and a wonderful driver that gets us from one place to another. And it is just, it takes a team effort.
Run faster, achieve more, do greatness. That's what Kelly O'Grady and her phenomenal team in Milano, as they say there, have done for us all week. We'll see you again tomorrow, Kelly. Happy Thursday, everyone. This is The Takeout, relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. The Daily Report coming up next.